literally said another party, and we literally dragged our heels. And this person who was in the office, she looked up and she said, "Hey guys, perspective, okay? There are worse ways to make a living. Go enjoy the party." And we were like, "Oh, that's wisdom."
To see someone else worse off than them, to feel, okay, my life is not so bad. Like,
and now it's very obvious to me when I look at someone, I know how numb they are, and I want to like shake them.
Fear and then regret and then fear of regret. So I think it's really the reason why this topic sort of came to me was because I've been talking about like growing older and things like that. That thing about not wanting to have regret, because I think regret is one of those things, emotions that is very heavy, and then it will weigh you down.
Yeah.
So the less of regret, I feel there is more lightness of being, and it just allows you to also be more just freer. And that was the reason why I had that. And I felt that with age as well, it's two things, right? One is that because you're older, you're also better able to process, for example, things that you may fear, like say having a crucial conversation, standing up for yourself, speaking up for yourself and things like that, or maybe even trying new things. Yeah, so the fear of maybe those things and then conquering that with, ironically, maybe a fear of regret, just do it because you don't want to have that fear of regret, or rather have that regret lah. So that fear of regret pushes you to do certain things. So yeah, that was why I was inspired to think about that.
Yeah. And I think we hear a lot of stories of people on their deathbeds, saying like, oh, I wish I did this, or maybe not deathbed, but maybe about to go, and they know they have not completed whatever they want to do. I think that kind of thought, sometimes if I sit down and think about it, I go like, oh gosh, I don't want to be in that position, especially if I know that I am capable of doing more, and if I'm not doing it, then I feel like, oh, like your time in a sense is like ticking away, right? And you realize that, oh, okay, I'm here on this planet not just to live and eat, right? It's here to be of service, and that we really have to complete the service, so to speak. And I think if we don't, we will regret, because people don't, on their deathbeds, it's always very emotional. They talk about the emotional things that they missed out. It's not about like, oh, I wish, yeah, or like I wish I had a big house. Like, I mean, who cares, right? You can't even take your house with you. But it's usually the emotional stuff that
relationships, people, your connections, I feel that, okay, sometimes when you look back as an older person, like, oh, people in general tend to think, oh, I should have done that instead of this, I should have made a different decision. But I've come to realize that you actually made the best decision you could at that point in time in your life, who you were back then. And so no regrets. Yeah. So I've come to have no regrets in that sense, even if it was something that had very dire consequences. It would have happened anyway because that was all you knew. And that means you've done your best. And as long as you've done your best, even if it didn't work out, it blew up in your face, you did your best. And for me, I'm at peace with that. Yeah. So, yeah. But like you, I feel that, yes, okay, so now what I tend to do is I would ask myself, will you regret if you don't do this or if you do this? That's the question that I've learned to ask myself very honestly. Yeah. And if the answer is yes, then do it. Yeah, I know I won't regret. But if the answer is no, I won't, then I know, which way to swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very good question, because I think if we were honest with ourselves and we keep asking ourselves this question, a lot of things that in the past especially, that I said yes to would be more out of habit or more out of obligation. Like, like friends gather together kind of thing, and they say, oh, let's meet up, and okay, let's meet up.
Just going with it, right?
Yeah, and you don't really think about it. But then if I sat down and think about it, like, where regret, like spending 5 hours with these people, and I go like, yeah, I will. But then I won't go,
Yeah. But like you were saying about service, right? And I think the only things I would regret if I didn't do would be loving someone, not loving someone enough that I could have. Yeah. That I would have a sense of regret for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like for me, I would say regret, right? Also would be like around forgiveness. Forgiving, be it yourself, like maybe some things that you've done that you did before, or just kind of be kinder to yourself, be kinder to the past, maybe to people who may have like done you wrong or something like that. I feel like that to me is also a potential source of regret, because I have people in my life that I know kind of live that way. They have that, like, oh, but this person did that to me.
Refuse to forgive, right?
Yeah, refuse to forgive, and I have seen how it
eats them up.
Yeah,
it eats them up. Yes, they feel like you can sort of almost see it, like clear as day. And I don't say this in a condescending way, or like, oh, better than thou kind of perspective, but just you see it as in like, oh, you kind of built this prison for yourself.
Yes.
And it's a very sad thing, because they don't see that, hey, this prison bar, right? Nobody like put this cage on me. I built it, and I've been in it for like decades.
Yeah.
And just for me to see that, and then to see also, like maybe experiencing people that kind of like within the inner circle, like for example, they've lost their lives or something like that, and then to see that, and then to see this, that's what kind of makes me think like, oh yeah, it is a privilege to get older. Like being alive is a privilege. And also recently, right, I was just scrolling social media just like 2 days ago, and I saw this one that was in Chinese. It was in Instagram, and it was meant to be kind of humorous about facts of life. It was delivered in a humorous way. And this person said something about people don't just die of old age. And that instantly made me think, oh man, that really is so true. Like, I think a lot of us just think, oh yeah, sure, everybody will die. But when you're older, you know what I mean? Like you'll get sick, and then you'll get old and get sick, then die, right? But actually, no.
Yeah, life is very fragile and
exactly. Like, yeah, people don't just die of old age. It was, like I said, it was said in Mandarin, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah. And like, don't regret telling someone you love them and showing that you love them. Yeah. I think that's like very hard to live down.
Yeah, for sure. I think we see maybe the older generation, like my parents' generation, where they have not learned how to get in touch with their emotions or learn how to forgive, especially if they don't have a spiritual life. Like I feel that a spiritual life is very important for everyone, and especially so when you get older, because if you don't have that, you're just very two-dimensional, right? Two-dimensional perspective, and I think that's quite sad, if you're not able to. It's like your world, you're so caged in, like you're a prisoner, like what Jimmy said, right? A prisoner of your own thinking. And there's no grace, I feel, in growing old that way. There's no point. You know, there's really no point to living like that. Yeah. It's really quite sad.
Forgiveness is healing both ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You yourself will heal when you let go of hurts and make concerted effort to help yourself to heal in whatever method works for you, right? Yeah. And it mends, hopefully it can even mend the relationship. If not, then at least, you yourself are healed. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like you hear stories of people still talking about,
The
like,
Japanese occupation.
yes. Oh my God. Especially from a particular generation, right?
My grandparents used to go on and on.
Yeah, because they grew up with that. It's very hard, and they don't have the tools to learn how to forgive, to heal, and all.
Yes.
I mean, they were not made available, right? I mean, to be fair to them,
of course.
so they're not equipped.
Yeah.
And it's like they're so frozen in time, and I feel like, I think for people like that, because they're not given the tools, they don't have self-awareness, in a sense, maybe they don't experience regret because they don't have the capacity. But if you know, like you have the tools, and yet you don't do it, I think that will be so full of
devastating.
Regret. Yeah.
I think it's just sometimes not, I mean, as I'm talking, obviously, I have people in mind, right, that I kind of like mentioned earlier on. Yeah, some are like generational, but some are actually also like considered my peers. It's I don't know where it starts with. The older generation I can understand, and I feel sometimes, I would view it and feel kind of sorry, like, oh, I think they just don't have that concept. This thing about like, forgiving people, like, oh, this, that, like, oh, maybe I can let go of this and I'll feel better. It's like, what kind of like weird thing is this, right? Like a so-called wrong has to be right.
Yes.
Right at that point.
Eye for an eye.
How can you do it post, like decades later, that kind of thing. So it's that, and then those that are so-called, I mean, not so-called, but are younger, and I don't know, maybe it's just the lack of awareness, or maybe it's the
I think it's also pride.
Yeah, I think
an inability to forgive stems from pride. Yeah. You feel that yourself you hold yourself in a very warped image that it's like, nobody can wrong me, If you wrong me, you had it. I'm writing you out of my life completely. Yeah. So that's pride. Yeah. Forgiveness takes humility as well, right?
What you just said is very true, and at least for me, like for again, the people that I'm thinking about, like, and then there was like the two that I can think of that. Yeah, I think it's if I forgive, then that little shred left of me being right is gone. I've given that up.
Yeah.
Because if you are a victim, then I think you feel like being a victim means I'm right. Because I mean, right, the aggressor and the victim, like people would usually be like, oh, the aggressor is the bad one. So I think it's that victimhood, that identity of being a victim gives maybe some of them like that sense of righteousness.
Yeah. But
so if I give that up, then how?
Yeah, but you see, people forget that forgiveness doesn't mean you forget the wrong that was done.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And it doesn't take away the wrong that was done. Yeah. It's saying I forgive you despite the hurt that I still sometimes feel. Yeah. That is the beauty of forgiveness. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think most people are very they're very rigid when it comes to these sort of things. In the work that I do, right, whenever someone has a very black and white view of the world, like, oh, I cannot forgive. If I forgive, it means that my experience is no longer important, right? They see it very black and white. It's actually their trauma talking. They're not able, they feel like if I let go, it means that, are you saying I did not experience the pain?
Yeah.
And it's so hard for them to let go. And you have to like soften the whole, when you notice them as well, right? As people, they're very hard. Like they're very rigid.
Yeah.
And you have to soften them, and
Yes.
like you feel like you just want to water them, like a
heart
plant,
of
right?
stone. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to make them like a
Flesh.
plant.
Become flesh. Yeah.
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 And so that, hey, soften up and know that it's okay, like your experience is your experience is totally valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes, and there's no black and white. The spectrum is so gray. It's so gray, and it doesn't mean you're wrong if you forgive.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, just take the example of being physically hurt. Okay, if you, let's say, got a gunshot wound, okay, and then of course you go to the hospital, they patch you up, you recover. It doesn't mean you didn't get shot.
Yes. Yes.
But does it mean that you want to continue bleeding and get an infection and die eventually? No, right? So it's the same with emotions, emotional hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe because it's not visible, people just cannot wrap their heads around it, the idea, right? Yeah, I can't see it, I can only feel it. And that's why they feel like they have to hang on to it because, it's like the only thing that they could hang on to, right? And so they can't let go.
Yeah.
It's almost like a power.
I think so.
They feel that it empowers them.
Yeah. Definitely
Like
power.
a fuel, and it almost sort of like gives, like I said, kind of like it adds to the identity.
Yeah,
sense of
for
identity.
sure.
And I really resonated with what you said earlier on about, some of them, they feel like if they give it up, it means like, like that's it, like I went through all that suffering for nothing, or like this person did me wrong, and then it doesn't mean it invalidates it. Like two things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
It doesn't change the fact that you were wronged, that person did wrong to you, but I think it's that being able to see the futility of, but you holding the grudge, right? It's not going to do anything to correct the wrong in the past.
Yeah.
But it's actually doing something to you now.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
That
worse.
is of your doing. Like that hurt that the person gave you, right, was in the past. But this hurt of that
Continues. Yeah.
It's self-induced, Yeah, and I want to say, I think for some it's just maybe that lack of awareness or being able to see the possibility. That, hey, actually I can let this down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they weaponize it.
Oh, yes.
Then they'll go and like, hopefully they don't but they're going to tell the whole wide world, like, this person did this to me. And then in the end, who now needs forgiveness?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Correct. The
Nobody
seeking
wins.
validation, external validation.
In the end, nobody wins, right? Like you're still hurt, and now you're hurting that person back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
it hurts the whole community, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, when you speak to somebody like that, right, and I'm laughing, in no way making light of their situation, but just laughing because, like if they talk to you about it, right, and you try to balance the situation, but this or that, and then at some point, right, you end up being the one that they're having like an argument against. How come you don't see this? How come you cannot like just say like, oh yeah, how horrible, how could that person do it? Yeah, you know what I mean? When you try to say, but yeah, that was very bad, but maybe you can try letting go.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. They're like, why do I have to let go?
Yeah. It's very hard to change
why am I fighting against you?
Yeah.
Like, fighting against this.
It's impossible to change their minds because they've already boxed themselves in. Almost like, if they get to that stage, right, it's almost like they have to just take it to the grave with them because they may not even regret because they don't even know. They still think it's other people's fault, you know what I mean? Yeah, they just can't. It's just so, I think they suffer a lot in the end because they can't let go. Yeah.
And it becomes generational. Like generational in a different way that this thing gets passed down.
Yeah.
All our wounds, whether we realize it or not, gets passed down, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. To our children and our grandchildren and all. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's the thing when you said like, do you think they'll have regret? And then Shamala, you were saying probably not, right? It's, I agree. I'm also thinking kind of from observer point of view. So for example, right, like the people that I'm thinking about and then me, sometimes when I think about it, it's almost like I have that sense of regret for them. Like, oh, if only, you know, if only you could let this down, put this down, things would be so much better. Like you can start some healing, you know,
Yes.
and be happier and all of this, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't be a healer yourself if you are constantly wounded and not healed. Yeah. I mean, you can't go to war with your battle wounds, right? You have to be healed and well before you can go and fight the spiritual battles of this world, so to speak.
Yeah.
So healing is so important, and forgiveness is the first step to healing.
Yeah. The capacity to forgive, I think, ties in very closely to how much do you love yourself. I find that the people who struggle with forgiveness oftentimes don't have enough or do not have a concept of what self-love is. Yeah, they don't love themselves enough to forgive other people. And that's why they're suffering, right? Like, it's so internalized. They're just literally, killing themselves. And the physical body will respond accordingly. It will give you some funny thing that you will die of. And it's just, quite sad, when people get to that stage.
Well, I believe that for us on our own to forgive is very, very hard. So for me, I depend on the grace of God to forgive. Whether you ask for it or not, when you are able to forgive someone who hurt you deeply, is actually God's work.
Yeah, and I also think that, it's kind of like, that's why the company that we keep is so important, because sometimes it's really through talking with the people in your inner circle, and sometimes that vulnerability of like, you think you sort of like only you have this hurt, only you have this wrong being done to you, and then if the other person is being vulnerable as well, they share some things, and you go, okay, so they have undergone that too, and they managed to come out of it, and they seem happier. Like, I think the company that we keep could help to moderate, provide some.
It's very important.
Right?
Yeah, because they say you will eventually become the company you keep. So pick your friends carefully. Especially people you hang out with a lot and communicate with a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want to grow well, you have to make sure the garden that you are in, right? Like,
the soil and everything.
Right, the soil, like it's hard to like blossom when your environment, you don't take charge of the environment. And then kind of be like, oh, this person I think is like kind of toxic.
Yes.
And then you will like let go. Right? Like weeds in your garden, you wouldn't just be like, oh, I want to blossom, but I will still keep this weed next to the garden that's taking away all the nutrients.
Correct. Yeah. If you know that it's not good and you leave, that's great. But if you just keep on joining them, you will eventually become like that.
Yeah. Because it's an echo chamber. You get stuck in everything that is being voiced out, you absorb and you reflect, and you keep bouncing these same kind of thoughts, same kind of, with each other, and it just goes around. And if you one day realize that, what am I doing here? You really have to get out. Yeah. That will be a form of self-love, right? To love yourself enough to remove yourself from the situation.
Something that's not good for you.
And also I think sometimes the falling off of people in your inner circle, by falling off, I mean, I don't mean like all have to like die lah. Sometimes relationships don't work out, this, that. Even all the way back into like the earlier part of your lives, like I think the beauty of age is hindsight. And then you think and you go, oh yeah, like that makes sense now. Because again, I think earlier we were talking about how certain decisions or certain things that happen in our life just shape us the way we are. And I think with people as well, like sometimes people leave, sometimes we curate, right? And we decide to like, okay, I think let's
Distance. Yeah.
distance ourselves. Sometimes people distance themselves
Yeah.
from you, and
and it's okay also when people leave, right? I mean,
Yeah.
don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Everyone has got to journey in their own way,
yes,
and we cannot like, you know, you
yeah,
hear these stories and
Yeah.
gossip, right, about people who say,
Yes.
oh, but we've been friends for 20 years,
Yeah.
and then there
Yeah.
was one day she decided not to be my friend anymore. It's like, it's okay, you know,
Yes.
like, because people have to journey their own way,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong.
Yeah. And I find that the beauty of letting go of people who feel they need to leave your life is that when they come back, right, you know, then they realize, wow, what a friend you have been. You really let me find myself. You didn't judge me for doing that. And the friendship actually becomes even stronger, and there's a better understanding, and they appreciate you so much more. Like, wow, I never knew you were actually rooting for me in your own quiet way. Yeah. And now I wish I had spent that much more time with you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
if they don't come back,
It's fine
also
too.
okay.
It's also fine, because then
It's also okay.
then you know, it was never meant to be in that way, right? Not meant to be in your life. Yeah.
It made me think of, like, you know, I mean, again, as a child, even as a young adult, right, I always kind of felt like, oh, when relationships with people, relationships, I mean, friendships are relationships, right? But just in general relationships, when it doesn't work out, then it's like, oh, why is it like that? That's that.
We
now,
angst over it. We get very
you know, that
angsty over it. Yeah.
angsty, that sense of loss, you get sad and all this. And then now it's like, I truly can appreciate the comparisons that, you know, some people, like, how should I say that? Like, you know, in Chinese culture, right, we talk about destiny, like 缘分, right? And then that sometimes it crossed for a really long time and you think it will remain crossed forever, but every one of that has its end.
Yeah.
Even if it's all the way to the end, then it will be till death do you part, right? Like, that will be the final thing that will end that relationship. Instead of coming to terms with that and being at peace with that.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, all of us, you know, when we want to, at the point of leaving our bodies, right, we want to leave with peace, right? That's and everything that we're working on right now in our lives is really for planning for exit, right? Like, we want to have a sense of peace. And if we are so filled with regret, so filled with fear, we can never live in peace. And we will struggle, you know, the body will struggle.
Yeah.
And
it's the grace of a happy death. Death can be happy.
Yes.
And it should be happy.
It should be
peaceful, hopefully. You know, in a peaceful manner.
And I think people have a problem saying they are sorry. That's why also there's this, like, unforgiveness, there's this, like, regret, and then, you know, it's all about, I cannot say sorry. Or I don't want to be the one to say sorry, because you have to say sorry to me.
Oh yeah, that's so true. And also I would add that, you know, it doesn't always have to be one way. It could be the other way too, that you may have done something wrong. And that potential sense of regret of, oh, I never apologized for that.
Yes.
And then that thing about, but how do I do it now? That's also something that I've come to learn, that you actually don't need to. If you could, sure, do it, right? Go find that person and do it. But if not, actually, you don't need to have that actual thing happen.
Conversation, even.
Conversation, yes, with the person and say, hey, I did this and I'm sorry. It could be just you sending out that message in a way, and basically being at peace with yourself, that acknowledging you did that, and then you apologize and wish that person well from afar.
Because sometimes your actions are not perceived in the way that you thought. Like, let's say you In your mind, like maybe you cut someone off, you were very rude to that person, but the person didn't perceive it that way. For them, it's like, oh, okay, it's just another day, and maybe that you regret, right? And you like, oh, why did I cut the person off? And then you start beating yourself up, and then one day you decide to have a conversation with this person. You go like, I'm so sorry I cut you off. Then the person's like, huh? What are you talking about? So it can be that way, and that's why it's so important that when we do this forgiveness, right, that sometimes it may be better to do it privately, like you don't really have to go to, because it's again the perception. They may not even experience it the same way. This is the amazing thing about our individual experiences in life and our relationships.
And sometimes it's also better to let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah.
Kind of like if that chapter is
the
closed,
hornet's nest. Yeah.
yeah, it's closed. Don't go and like gay kiang and like let me
drain the past.
Yeah, let me hunt down this person and then jolt their memory and say, no, you don't remember, but like, I just want to say sorry. Be like, why did you show up again?
You can always just write an email or a letter. I think that's also quite nice. I mean, it's like giving that person space, don't intrude because you already did something wrong, right? So don't barge into his life or her life. Yeah, just write a letter and say, all the things that you regretted that you did, and just leave it. Yeah. If you don't forgive me, it's also fine because that's your choice and that's what it is. Anyway, I did this.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately sometimes it's the acceptance of, okay, I did that. That wasn't the right thing to do, but I did that. And that self-forgiveness is, how should I say it? That healing can come from self-forgiveness. It doesn't necessarily need to be external, like that person saying, I forgive you.
Yeah.
And then that's a magic bullet or that's a magic pill that can like cure you. I think sometimes it's the coming to terms, taking accountability, but then also saying that it's okay to move on. That you don't self-flagellate anymore.
Yeah.
Because what good does it do, right? Just like holding a grudge, just like the reverse, holding a grudge against the other person for decades, what good does it do?
Yeah. They say it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yes, exactly.
And don't repeat that behavior, so to speak, right?
Yeah, because we don't really, like everything that we do wrong, right? Or everything that mistakes we make is actually the experiences. Because if we keep repeating the same mistake but with different people, then we have not learned, right? But if we learn from the mistake and don't repeat, then the next person or next group of people that comes into our lives will kind of benefit from it. But it doesn't mean that you have to regret, like, oh, I did this, to this person how many like decades ago, and then I'm a better person now. I should go and run back and tell them I'm a different person.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might upset that person.
I know, right?
It's weird.
It's like they've moved on, they've forgotten, and then you know.
Or it's like that, like we were talking about victimhood, right? Like it's a superhero thing. So that person may be like that. It's like, no, I don't want you to say sorry to me because I want to hang on to my hurt.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's my superpower. Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly, yeah. Correct. That's so true. It might be like doing that and then go like, why do you come back? And then is it to try to redeem yourself? No, I'm so angry with you.
I'm the hero, not you.
And then you end up probably making them feel worse. Like, I haven't seen you in decades and then now you're back again.
Trying to act good and all that, and
correct.
Who knows what they will say, right?
People
so sometimes it's the like, you gotta like do your maths, balance your sums.
Do your homework also. Do your due
balance your sums and be
right?
like, is it worth it doing this, or is it just better to
And like also who it depends on who. Different people take apologies differently. Yeah, some people be like, oh, like it really means something to them, and really it gives them healing, and they really needed that. Or like, I really thought that, you know, we could never speak to each other again, blah blah blah. But there are some people who really like, don't talk to me. You're dead to me. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, in the Alcoholic Anonymous, right? I mean, not that I was a member.
I know. I was thinking of that too.
Yeah, because they have their steps, right?
12 steps.
Yeah, they have the steps. I
Yes,
find that
forgiveness.
like they have to go back to
They
each
have to try lah.
person that they have wronged.
Yeah.
But I feel also what this system, I don't think is very empowering, because they are always in a position of, I'm once an addict, I'm forever an addict. Like I cannot heal from it, and the only way I can heal from it is to do my 12 steps, and then I'm like a lowly creature, you know, I cannot be empowered. It's like they can never, I feel like people do get stuck.
Like rise above.
Yeah, that's my perspective lah. I just feel like you can get stuck forever. Like there's no room for evolution. I'm not sure whether how evolved they are right now, but they do become stuck, you know, when they are just, you know, following the steps and that forever tied to that. And yeah, they have to go back to every single person. And it's very difficult. I imagine that, you know, some people will not want to entertain you. Like, you come back for what?
But maybe I guess it's just that you tried to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's successful or not, it doesn't matter, you know.
I think I'm not familiar with the 12 steps, but I'm imagining, maybe it's like the act of accountability.
Taking responsibility for your actions.
Owning up to your, you know, the wrongs that you've done. Because sometimes also the thing is, it could be like, are you doing this for me, or are you doing this for yourself? You know, the seeking forgiveness, right? Are you freeing yourself, or are you trying to free me?
It's like, sorry, I got a target to hit, no. Yeah, so I have to do this. I'm sorry.
I think that people can only heal if they do the steps along with actual healing. Because the steps alone, I don't think is enough. Like, you need to really work on yourself internally, right? And look at what your emotional and spiritual landscape is, your inner world. Then the steps will work. If not, it'll be like what you say, like, it's like, you know, something to tick off, right?
Box. Yeah. But maybe the part when they say once an addict, always an addict, they kind of like want people who have been addicted to realize that it's very easy to fall back. Because it is a disorder. We all have disorders, right? It's just that ours is not so serious that we become we're not addicts lah. Yeah, but we all have disordered habits. Yeah, and it's always with us. It's just our thing, our personal thing, right? Yeah. So maybe for them it's so dire, you know. They could kill someone, they could lose it, they could kill themselves. So they have to be reminded that you have this thing in you. It's almost like a disease that you cannot do certain things because...
That is so true. Yeah, like what you just said really just gave me a bit of a...
It's a disease.
Yeah, because it's almost like saying, oh, you're allergic to...
Correct, peanuts,
right?
Yeah.
Don't, you know...
Yeah, you're not going to go and eat kacang putih.
Yeah, just because you stop having flare-ups and you don't need maybe your shots or whatever, that kind of thing, doesn't mean like, oh, you just... Now you go, you know... Just so you have to always remember it's there.
Yes, yeah. So they can never go into places that serve alcohol, I think. Yeah, because it's really very triggering. I can imagine, right?
I've witnessed an argument between a person who was like maybe long-term member of AA, and then someone who got out of it, and someone who healed, right, and became a totally different person. And the one who is still with AA told the other person off and said that you were never an addict to begin with if you can heal. So I found that like, ooh, wow, you're trying to put this person down just because they managed to get out of it, create a new life. So the term, right, always once an addict, always an addict, right? This person used it Like, and say, if you are able to heal, that means you were never an addict to begin with. Like, huh?
You're a fake addict.
Yeah. I just found that, wow. You know, identity is so tied to being an addict that they can't even budge. Like,
you're not authentic. Yeah.
That would be a true example of invalidating somebody's experience.
Exactly.
And going that, you know, like, you're hurt, I'm more hurt than you. And my hurt is real, yours is not. If you can like get
if you can heal, it means you were never hurt. What? Yeah. That's really mean. Yeah. So strange, right? Yeah.
That sounds like jealousy and envy.
I know.
Yeah, actually that's true. It sounds like, how come
Yeah, like you're not allowed in our club anymore.
how come you can
They
heal
call you.
like
Yeah.
how come you can heal and I cannot? Okay, the only reason why that would be true is because you were never an addict in the first place.
Exactly.
It's not that I'm weaker, it's just you were never an addict in the first place.
It's just so strange, right? The perception that people have and how the identity is so tight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very strange. I mean, you know, it also kind of just makes me think about how some people have to see someone else worse off than them to feel, okay, my life is not so bad. Like, compared downwards.
But
it is true.
But the other way is like people will again, you know, like, oh, my suffering is worse than yours.
Competition, right?
Yeah, and sometimes I need to remind people, hey, this is not a competition, you know. Like
who's the most miserable?
Yeah, who suffered more? Like,
misery is not a championship.
Exactly.
Sorry. Yeah.
Like, who is competing?
It's
right?
a contest. It's the martyrdom, you know. Miss Martyrdom.
Oh yeah, Miss Martyrdom. That's funny.
Like,
Mr. Martyrdom.
Take the crown. This year it's you.
Oh no,
But you know what?
Really
that is so okay. So the part where you say, yeah, sometimes it's helpful, right? This is the opportune time to share this because this came from Sue. That she told me this, and I forever remembered it. It was a job that I started at, and I was having a really hard time.
I remember what it was.
And yeah, really hard time.
You were so stressed. You were working such long hours, right?
Back then, it wasn't. What was it? I don't think back then we would text so much because there isn't.
We would meet up,
right? So I would just call, and then you know we both at work. I'll steal away for a while, and then I'll just call her, and then I'll say, oh. And then I remember she told me there are worse ways to make a living, and then that was something that just stuck with me, and it has always lifted me since then from a lot of like situations where I feel like you know, either genuinely feeling very dejected or sometimes just feeling very frustrated. I'm like, to hell with this nonsense, right? And then I'll think, okay, the worst ways to make a living. Literally kind of like two sides of the same coin. Count your blessings.
How blessed we are. To
even have an office job and be able to complain about things like that.
Yes.
Right? As opposed to saying like, oh man, it's so hard, you know, I'm out like trying to hit the road or just something.
Correct. Or even those people, there are worse ways to make a living than paving the road. You know, at least you're out there in the sunshine, you're working your body, you know. Yeah, there are people who are forced to do things that are so undignified. Yeah. And we all forget that. Yeah. And actually that was told to me by one of our colleagues back then. We used to grumble every time we had to go for an event and so ungrateful, no? We all like, ugh, gotta go for this stupid event.
Like another party.
Yeah. Precisely. We literally said another party and we literally dragged our heels. And this person who was in the office, she looked up and she said, hey guys, perspective, okay? There are worse ways to make a living. Go enjoy the party. And we were like, oh, that's wisdom.
Yeah.
That's what they would call a mic drop moment.
I was just like, okay, let's go.
You'll be happy to know that I have paid it forward too.
Good.
I have since told people like, hey, there are worse ways to make a living.
Yeah. That's
But it has to be. It's things like this, right? Like earlier we did spin the wheel and all that, right? Like, oh, what have we learned that stays true? Sometimes I feel it's about the timing. Some of these like nuggets of evergreen truth.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's the how it's said, when, by who, and one time it will just connect and stay with you. And then it's like we talked about earlier on, right? Like once you learn the lesson, then you, okay, on to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely the timing.
Yeah.
Say the wrong time, you'll just boom.
Correct. You're not ready for it. Yeah. And you might get angry,
Yeah.
What are you
What kind
saying?
of nonsense?
Are you belittling my suffering?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And actually you, Jimmy, also told me something just before I left as my group in my group editor job. Remember we had lunch at a Japanese restaurant, I don't know if you remember, and then you said, and I had talked about leaving, and then you said, don't let fear stop you from doing the things that are important to you, that mean something to you, that you feel is good for you. So like leaving a full-time stable job, that can be quite scary, right? And going into an unknown, like no other job, and just wondering, okay, should I freelance? Should I do this? But you said that, and I thought, why let fear? Fear is so like useless. Fear is completely useless. So I did it.
Yay. And subsequently I did it too. Left my job, no other job planned,
and no regrets.
Moved to a different country. It just really difficult, but kind of no regrets. And I think sometimes hindsight, and then we kind of think, oh, but if we didn't make that decision, if we continue on that trajectory, right? I think that it's important to remind ourselves not to fall into the fallacy of, if we didn't make that decision, then because then we're assuming that trajectory will just keep going that way. I mean, I could have stayed and then a month later get retrenched, right? It doesn't need to be something really bad or sinister, like, oh, you lose your life, you get into an accident or something. It could be just times become very bad and then
that's true,
get replaced or retrenched. And we always make the assumption in hindsight that, oh, things would go that way, like ceteris paribus, like every condition remaining the same, but it's not true. So that's why it's like, if it feels right and we've done all the calculations, shouldn't.
Fear is useless lah. Fear is a useless emotion. I mean, it's good to when you're in a position of danger. That's the only time that fear is good. But all these mulling over things that have not even happened, that's useless.
Then it's useless. Actually, fear only has two uses for especially little children: fear of loud noises and fear of falling. Because it's for self-preservation, right? Other than that, it is useless. It doesn't serve any purpose, only to stop us from doing maybe what we should be doing.
Living in the moment,
I would probably say, let me say something, maybe it's slightly controversial. I think the only fear that would be worth having is to have a fear of regret. Right? Don't have that fear and then later you have the fear of wanting to do this certain thing or change your career or whatever, and instead you choose to live with the fear of regret. I think that's harder.
So having said that, I'm gonna seg into this thing about regret. Many years ago, I think it was in 1999, when I just become title editor, I was so stressed because the jump was immense, well, at least for me. And I had to go to Paris to do a project, with a French brand. So there I am, very new editor. I had to leave the office things, and go and do this. So people were, back then, don't even have text, no handphone. They were faxing me things. They were faxing me articles to proofread, to edit. Every time I come back from whatever appointment with that brand, I will have this slew of papers under my door, like just slipped in, right? The hotel would just slip it in. I was so stressed. I just like wanted to break. I was almost going to have a nervous breakdown. So I called someone. I won't tell you who, okay? And I was just crying on the phone with this person, and I was just saying, I can't do this. I can't concentrate on doing this project well. And then the office is in a mess, you know, like everyone's screaming like, hey, can we have this back soon? We need to send it out, blah, blah. So I really can't do this. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And this person very calmly told me, okay, never mind. Just ask yourself one thing. If you gave it up now, this job, will you regret? And this person said, you know, there's nothing wrong giving it up. Nothing wrong at all. No shame. Honestly, so what? But what's important to you is whether you will regret. I will regret if I give it up now. Then this person said, then don't give up. Just power on. It's okay. It's just the beginning. Then do not give up. Yeah. That's why from this day onwards, I always ask myself, will you regret? Yeah. And that really helped me. And I ended up, editing this magazine for like almost 10 years. Can you imagine if I had just said, I don't do this anymore, I come back and I just resign?
Yeah.
I don't know how, I mean, my life could have been different in a good way. I don't know. Yeah. But I know that I would have regretted. Well, at that point in time, I knew I would have regretted. Yeah.
That's a powerful words, right? From
And the thing is that it's not wrong to go the other way too. It is not. Yeah. So I guess we also need to remind ourselves that there's no judgment. It's you. It's very personal. Yeah, because it doesn't really affect anybody else but you.
Yeah, and it also doesn't matter what other people will think of your decision.
Correct. It doesn't matter.
Ultimately, it's you.
Don't let that affect your decision.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you have to live with your decisions. And if you can, then really that's all that matters. And if you cannot, then that's not the decision.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not the decision you should make.
Even if everybody is like cheering you and say, yeah, that's the best thing you did, if you don't feel it's right.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
If I could share one quick story, I promise to make it quick, also work related, where I had always been in fashion, but I really wanted to go into marketing. So then I tried so hard, went for interviews, I was willing to take lower positions, lower pay, blah, 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 because I was getting more senior in fashion marketing, right? I was like, wow, I got this interview. I just sailed through the interview with no prior experience in that industry. And it was for a big company, and they offered me the job. But coincidentally, at that point in time, I also had a promotion that I knew at that point in time my boss had really fought for it.
Oh wow.
Fought really, really hard to give me that promotion, because that was when I first joined. I was like, I would really like to do that job. So then the dilemma, right? A good dilemma, but a dilemma nonetheless. You have the best of both worlds, like, so how? And I chose to give up the beauty job that I worked so hard for because I felt integrity. And I personally called and apologized. I said, I genuinely love this and I was so excited. I couldn't wait to start, but I can't do this because of this. And I explained it. And I said, I'm really, really sorry, but yeah, I just need to do this to honor this thing, right? I didn't tell that other boss, the one that fought for the promotion. Obviously, I wasn't going to tell her, right? Like, hey, I just interviewed and I got another job. But much later, I did tell her, but when we became friends. Anyway, so time passed, right? And I would think about like, did I make the right decision? And back then, friends were feeling bad for me, saying like, but you worked so hard, you were trying to go in the industry. And 4 years later, I was headhunted to join that same big company.
Oh wow.
And I did at a higher position. So it's sometimes life is such that you just cannot, the hindsight, you look back and you go, okay, it sounds cheesy, but if it's meant to be. Yeah. Just number one, don't have the fear, don't have the regret, and kind of do the right thing as in what's right to you, not what's right by everybody else's standard, but what's right to you.
Yeah. Because there's so many different standards to live up to. If we have to live up to other people's standards.
Yeah.
And you have to wake up and face yourself every day.
Yes.
So that's the thing. Yeah. And you have to
crowdsource
walk in your own shoes.
You cannot crowdsource your own life's decisions because you have to live with it the next day.
So, having shared all that, is there one thing that you would like to complete before you pass on? One important thing that you feel like it has to be, really leave behind, like a legacy lah.
A legacy. Okay.
Can be small or big. In any way, in shape and form.
Well, for me, I would like my legacy to be that of kindness. That when people remember me, they remember to be kinder to themselves, to other people, because hopefully they felt kindness from me. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Okay. Jimmy?
Let me think. I would hope that I have, in my entire lifetime, been able to play a part in making somebody else's life better in terms of in a healing way. Yeah, that kind of made them, just better quality of life in that sense, in a kind of emotional healing way, and that
like they felt seen and heard. That they will always feel seen and heard.
Yes, correct. And that maybe some certain things that I've done or said or shared have made a difference in a good way.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I may not know it, but
yeah. I think for me, it would be very similar to both of you. It's also about, I know that many people have experienced in life like what I have experienced, right? Where, I mean, the reason why I do this work is to help people to be in touch with their emotions, because I know that as a child, as a young adult, I was very numb, right? Because of everything that I experienced as in childhood and all of that. Very numb to, feelings and emotions, and working through that, and helping people. And now it's very obvious to me when I look at someone, I know how numb they are, and I want to like shake them and say, wake up, don't numb out, but so my legacy would be, for people to awaken to that part of themselves, because it's such a important doorway to different aspects of us. Our emotions are really the doorway to our spiritual selves, to our spiritual practice, to religion, or whatever you want to, call it. But it's such an important one. And also for spiritual people to realize that you can't intellectualize spirituality. Too many people out there, just intellectualizing spirituality, like it's not how it's meant to be felt, right? And it has to be felt truly. And this is something that I hope to leave behind, to allow people to be touched by something, within themselves. And in the process of doing it, to be very honest, sometimes to the point where people get maybe upset, but not on purpose. I'm trying to upset them, but to at least get out of numbness. To feel upset is better than to be numb.
Actually, if I could add something to mine, I would hope that there were people that I care about that felt that I was that safe space for them, that I created a safe space for them.
Yeah,
I think that would be a truly like a smile,
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this topic.
For inviting me to yet another fun
and for inviting me too.